I'm here. I'm just giving it a minute. Isn't it fun that you can hear me but you can't see me? Let's see. Oh, hi everybody. Hi, hi, hi. Happy fall. Let me just quickly draw these in. Oops, 701. Okay, let me turn the camera around and show you all my beautiful face. Not really. Especially if you saw what I'm wearing, which you will. I'm wearing my paint clothes. Okay, let's pop you around for a second. You can see my messy studio too. Me. Hi all. Welcome. We're going to do our pumpkin painting tonight. It is our fall piece. It is our intermediate class. So, well, of course, everybody can come and everybody can paint. We are doing, you should know the basics. So you should know how to float. You should know how to transfer pattern. I will very quickly go over it, but just so you know, those are the basics you should have. A quick thing that, I know I hate the way I look. A quick thing is that type your comments. I will do my best to answer them. I usually get them all answered. If I don't, after class, I will go back and answer all of them. Even if I do answer them on camera, I will go back and answer them so that if you need to go back to the information, you'll have it all the time. Okay? I will probably tell you about other things going on. The end of the class, I will show you next month's beginner piece because I already showed them, and the next month's intermediate piece, and they're both a lot of fun. All right, so I'm going to flip you around. We're going to start painting, and happy autumn, happy fall, happy almost winter, because that's what it feels like today. Okay, I'm popping you around. Okay. So hopefully, so just in case you all don't know, I am ahead of you. So you are time delayed. Okay. So, hello everybody. Thank you for being here. Thanks for hanging with me. Thanks for learning from me. I appreciate you all. Okay, so this is where you should be. And we are going to do some fun techniques to take us here. The first thing I want to quickly do is I want to just demo the background so that you can always know how to do it. If your background looks different, it's not a problem. There's no right or wrong. So if you said, excuse me, I want a purple background, you could have a purple background. There's nothing to that. But let me show you the technique I did anyway, so you'll always know how to do it. Okay? And hello everybody. I would love to say hello to everybody, but then I'm going to stop painting. So, hello. Thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing to spend your time with me. I appreciate it. All right, so I'm putting out some white, and I'm putting out some traditional burnt umber. Now, you would have your surface base coated white. This is just a piece of canvas board that I've been painting on both sides. I've been demoing on. And it's actual canvas board, so you could frame it. So I'm just going to take an old brush. It would be base coated white. Then I'm going to come in, I'm going to heavy load my brush. And it's just a big old brush that it's in pretty bad shape. And I put a nice coat so that it's wet. Because when you do this, that's what you're looking for. Put some more white on there. And just an FYI, when I'm base coating, I often put it right on my surface. Just like that. You just have to work fast so it doesn't dry. Okay. I am not cleaning my brush. I'm going to come in, I'm going to pick up some traditional burnt umber. And I'm just, and you see I'm not over blending. So I have areas of dark and I have areas of lighter. Now I may look at that and say, oh, it's not wood grainy enough. So then I'll add darker area so that I have some real dark. Okay? That, when I blend, let's see if I can show you this way. I'm really on the tips of my bristles and very little. The one thing I'm not doing is I'm here. I'm not doing this and blending it so much that I've just created another color and I have no variation of color. I want to see white and I want to see the lines so that it looks like I have somewhat of a wood grain. If I wanted real dark, that's how I would do that. Now that's just how I did my whole background. It's a very, very simple background. It's a very simple background, but it's a very effective background. So you can paint anything on it, but that's all I did. Okay, so that said, let's move on. Now we're going to float. I'm going to float the edges of my surface. Now my surface, just an FYI, I had bought, I was in Hobby Lobby, and they were on clearance. Look, $1.39, they were regularly $13.99. Okay? I don't know, it had some funky print on it. Something about, here, look at the sides. So something about shoes and I'm wild for you. I don't even know. And all I did was do a quick sand to get rid of the shine on it. Nothing else. I didn't have to get rid of the design that was on there. And then I just painted right over it. So when you go to the store and look for surfaces, think outside the box. Anything. Donna, go out and come right back in. Anything you do can be on anything. Think outside the box. Now when I'm floating, I'm using a big brush because it's a big area. And I'm going to come and I'm floating. Now often when you're in a big area, and you see how I'm pulling all the way, I am not doing a choppy float. Now if I wanted to blend it, I'm going to come in and with my mop, I'm not pulling it, I'm just, make sure I'm on camera, I'm just up and down and just softening it. That's all I'm doing. I'm not pulling. And floating, I'll go through it quickly, is wet, blot, load, blend. I'll come in and do the bottom. Now in a perfect world, I would do the background and then I would shade the edges and then I would put the pattern on. But we don't have the time for that. So I needed you to be base coated. So if you were doing something like this, that's what you do. And in the meantime, I'll just come in, I'll just quickly clean it off. Now I don't always mop, sometimes I do. Now if you see, there's a shine. I don't know if you can see it. Maybe. There's a shine. If you hold it on an angle and there's a shine, that means it's still wet. And if it's still wet, when I come to do the sides, what'll happen is I'll pull off anywhere where my brush hits. And I don't want to do that. So I would wait a minute or dry it. And I don't think I'm drying because the fan is missing. So we're going to hang for 1 minute. And we're going to let that dry. In the meantime, I'm going to quickly show you, this is wrong, I'm going to quickly show you how to transfer pattern. Okay. We're going to take our pattern, and put it on tracing paper because it's a little bit easier. And I'm going to just line it up. I'm going to take my graphite. Now, you're going to use either transfer paper or graphite paper. It looks like carbon paper. It is not carbon paper. Transfer paper and graphite paper are exactly the same thing. People worry if they can't get one or the other, but it's just the difference in what the company that makes it calls it. It is transfer paper, it is graphite paper. Okay, I'm just going to hold the corner, and I'm just going to slide it under. And then I'm going to take anything I have. So in this case, I'm going to use a stylus. You can use the back of a paintbrush. You can use a pencil. Transfer paper, graphite paper, works with pressure. So it doesn't matter what you're using. Sometimes in class we use pencils, it doesn't matter. I lift, and you see I'm going to make sure this is in the right place. Sure. Yeah, that's okay. And these I drew in, but it's the same thing. So if you need to transfer a pattern, so even when you go to put your pattern on, that's exactly how you do it. Okay. So by now, I'll look at it on an angle, and I'll be dry. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to float these sides. Now, what's really important, one of my big pet peeves, is these corners. It's whenever you paint a corner. Your corner should be rounded out. You should not have all straight edges. And that's really important on anything you're doing. I'm going to show you how to do that. So we're going to come in and we're going to float traditional burnt umber. If you don't have traditional burnt umber, use burnt umber. If you don't have burnt umber, use asphaltum. Use anything darker than your base coat. Okay, so here's my float. Okay, now you see how that looks? It's very boxy. It doesn't round out the way we want it to. So when you're rounding, and I'll show you how to fix that. It's just got to dry first. I start here, and I'm coming side to side. You see that? And then I'll come up and reload when you're working big. I reload, and I'm coming here, and then I'm coming side to side. See, I'm rounding out that whole corner. And if I go off camera, I will catch it. Just remember, I'm time delayed. You're time delayed. I'm not. And you see the difference, and I wanted to do this on purpose. Oops, that was not smart. You see the difference between this side, which is rounded out, and this side, which is flat. And this I just put my finger in, and it was wet. So you see how quickly it came off when it was wet? So what I'll do is when I round out these corners, when it's dry, I'll fix that. But this kind of brings the whole thing together. This just lines it. Okay, do you see that? Okay. So, beautiful, right? This is a fun piece, and I'm not an autumn person, but it's a fun piece. Okay. So, And we'll fix this as soon as we dry. Now I'm going to stencil. Again, my job is to teach you the technique to do it. If you have different stencils, use different stencils. So I pulled a different stencil for here. I'm going to use this one, and I pulled a different stencil for the word, just to show you how we can do different things out of nowhere. So we're going to do these bubbles instead of those bubbles. What fun, right? Okay, so I'm going to take this base coat color and bring it into here to pull it together, and then I'll take this base coat color and pull it into here to pull it together. So I'm just going to lay my stencil. I'm going to take a stencil brush. I'm going to use the big one. I use Stencil Pros. I use them because they're synthetic. You can put hand sanitizer on them and change colors, and clean it to change colors in between. Nanette, that stencil is at Cupboard, cdwood.com. It's a great stencil. I think, don't quote me, but I think it's called Bubbles. All right, so I'm going to take, so I use this, and it's super soft, so it stencils really nice. So I'm going to take Tangerine, which is what I base coated here with. So if you base coated in a different color, use the color you base coated in. I'm going to take a little bit of Tangerine. I'm going to pick up paint. I have all the way across my brush. I'm going to scrub it off. Now, when you stencil, you want to have very, very little paint. And I'm really putting pressure. Look at how my bristles are. I am really putting pressure on my brush. Oh, it looks like I'm going in fast motion, huh? I'm going to lay my stencil. Now, just be careful outside. Straight up and down. Circles. Clockwise and counterclockwise. Clockwise and counterclockwise. Now, it makes no difference if you get it on the little pumpkin, because the little pumpkin is the same color. Okay, so here, clockwise and counterclockwise. Try not to get it on the background. You can put paper around, or you can clean it up with a baby wipe. Reload if you need to. Pull it off. And I just told it that a lot of people tape them. It's not a right or wrong issue. I just don't tape them. Okay? So, just do whatever makes you feel good. If it makes you feel more comfortable, tape it, tape it. I hold it in the corner and I lift. Look at how cool that looks. I like this one. That's the first time I used that one. So now I got it on my background. So I'll take a wet Q-tip. Q-tips from the dollar store, because they have less cotton on them. And I'll just take off where I got it in the background. Now, is it the end of the world? No, because I'm going to have branches and bittersweet there. Okay. And you could tape off where you don't want it to. I am just a little lazy. So then I'm going to take, this is my scribble stencil, which I happen to really like. I'm going to lay my scribble stencil. We'll go here. I'm going to take the same brush, because I'm in oranges, so it doesn't matter. I'm going to use Warm Sunset, which FYI I gave you the wrong color. I gave you Western Sunset, which is a very, very old Delta color. So, sorry about that. And I'm just going to pick up. Now, normally you'd use a new stencil brush, but because it's very close in color, it's fine. I'm going to lay this here. clockwise, counterclockwise, clockwise, counterclockwise. I don't want you to go clockwise and then just keep changing directions. Again, if you get it on there, on the other pumpkin, I'm going to lift. And I have a nice little pattern. That look pretty. These stencils, the way I wash them is I have an old cookie sheet. It's not even an old cookie sheet. I bought it at the dollar store. I lay them on. I get them wet. I use a magic eraser, and the magic eraser will clean them right off. A secret, it will work on old paint on your stencils too. And I put it on the cookie sheet so that it has something to grip to. No, the scribble stencil is Tracy Morrow. It is ST 085-1. That's Tracy's stencil. Okay. Now I like the way this came out. I also had this one too, which is Tracy's stencil too, which I could have used. But this gives us a nice fizzy look. Okay. We're going to start on this pumpkin. We're going to start on this pumpkin because it's in the back. Now, we're going to shade burnt orange. Now, on a pumpkin, each section is called a rib. It's a pumpkin rib. So what we want to do is dark makes the item recede, light brings it towards us. So we want to shade, we're going to shade the outside edges, and I'm going to do it with you, but I want to explain it to you first. We're going to shade the outside edges so that what happens is my flat pumpkin is going to look like it's going down. I'm going to shade behind each rib going forward. So I would shade here and here and here and here. What that's going to do is this rib has no dark on it because this is the rib that's closest to me. And then this is going back and this is going back so it looks rounded. So I went from flat to rounded. Okay, does that make sense? And if it doesn't make sense, I know I can't hear you saying yes or no. You can type it in the comments and I will read it. Okay, so I'm going to wet, blot, corner load, blend. Now the way I do it is I have my paint on my brush towards the left. I always float with a chisel blender. Shorter bristles give you better control. So I'm going right up against the edge. That's not dark enough. Bump to Oxblood, which I know is on the list. We'll shade him with burnt orange, and we'll do this one with Oxblood. Oxblood is the darkest orange that DecoArt makes. If you don't have Oxblood, flip over to burnt sienna. Okay, burnt sienna will work too. Okay, so we'll come in. Let's try this again. My paint is towards the left, but I'm on the pumpkin. Okay, so I'm shading the outside edge to put it down. Now if you notice, I'm not doing this. Because you see how that looks and how that looks? I'll take that excess paint off. Come in and it's one stroke. And I don't care that it's on my stem because I'll touch up my stem quickly. Now, these would go this way, but I want to keep my brush this way. I want to keep my brush with the paint corner towards the left. So I'll flip over here, because remember, the ribs that's in the middle is the rib that's on top. So I'm here. And you can see he's starting to become dimensional. Okay, and then I'm here. I could talk more, but I have nothing to say. Everybody who knows me knows it's not a common occurrence. Okay. Hi Jane, thank you. He's a cute pumpkin, right? Considering I'm not a pumpkin person, I'm not a fall person, I think I did this one pretty well. Now, when we get to the, if we're still online in the spring, then we'll do flowers, and flowers are my thing. All right, so while that's drying, let's bump down to him, and in the burnt umber, the burnt orange. And again, if you don't have burnt orange, just bump to something that you have that's a darker color. Okay, so the back edge, and I know my original piece I have light there, and I'll explain more in a bit. And then let's bump over here. Now we did this, we moved to this one, because if I came in and did this, we're going to pull off here. So we just bump around. And we're doing the same exact thing. So we're floating to add dimension to the ribs of our pumpkin. Okay. Yeah, I love the stencils too. And these are great stencils. Everybody uses very common stencils. I am kind of the rebel on that because I like the different ones. So when you're out and about and you're at convention or you're shopping online, or even Dollar Tree now has some stencils, use stencils that are different. They change your whole project and make them so unique to you. Now you see how half of my pumpkin's very dimensional and the other half is not yet dimensional? Alright, so now I can bump back here. Oh, hi Sue! Sue's up in Vermont. She has been in Vermont since quarantine. So we're in Oxblood. Remember, we're always a darker value than what our base coat is. Our outside edge again. Now, if you notice, you can see I keep moving my piece, so I know sometimes it's upside down for you. I move my piece because I want you to move your piece. I don't want you to struggle to move your hand so that your piece is comfortable. You will get a much better stroke if you move your piece. So always move your piece. Think about the goal is to keep your hand comfortable. Okay? And just flip around. Sorry, I'm just getting more paint. And I know I have a big lump in there. Okay, so move on to the next rib. I'm glad you all love when I'm live. I do try. So here and here, and I'll stop at that pumpkin because right now all we're doing is separating ribs. See how I'm bringing that dimension to that piece? Now I've just, with a dark paint, I've pushed down the areas that I want to recede, so under each rib. Okay. Now if you were doing a pumpkin with no design on it, I would tell you to dry brush in the center of each rib, and what that'll do is that'll bring just the center of the rib up higher and push the backs of the ribs down lower. But because we have a design on here, we're not going to add more color. But keep that in mind because that's a really good way to create dimension on a plain pumpkin. Okay. I'm going to make that one light because it should be. So now we're going to shade these rib separations to in my original piece. The backs of these ribs are light, and I'm going to tell you why. I know the general rule is push it down, but this is twofold. This has to come above this. So if I push this down, it's going to look like it's under here. So that would not be right. And sometimes to break the rule, and sometimes we just have to take artistic license, if I do dark here and dark here, like I did here, now I'll just go over this light, but if I do dark here and here, what happens is this whole area gets dark, and we don't want it to be dark because then it doesn't look natural. Okay, so that's an important artistic license. Sometimes you have to break the rules. And you'll see, because I would lie and tell you I did it so you could see, but I didn't. But you see how now that rib sticks out because it's dark on both sides? So what I'm going to do is I'll go over it with light and then I'll change it. This one has to be light because it's above this one, okay? But this wouldn't look natural like this, okay? But it's an easy fix. Anything you do, you are not married to. Keep that in mind. You're never married to something. If you don't like it, paint over it, or float over it, or dry brush over it. You can do anything to go over it. So here where I'm dark, I'm just going to float light over it, and that'll take it right out. Okay? So don't worry about that. It's one of my favorite sayings, and I really mean it. You are not married to anything you did on this piece. Okay? Your base coat, you're kind of married to. Because if you put it on wrong and you have lumps, you can't get rid of them. But short of that, there's not much. Okay, so if you remember what I said, you're going to need a little bit of banana cream, and you're going to need some tangerine. Those are going to be our highlight colors. Now, no matter who you paint with, when you shade, when you float with a darker color, you're shading. When you float with a lighter color, you're highlighting. The easiest way to remember that is the light is in highlighting. That's the easiest way to remember it. Alright, so if you remember what I said, dark makes the item recede, light brings it towards us. The colors right now to highlight are Tangerine. We're going to highlight Tangerine on the big pumpkin and Banana Cream on the little pumpkin. Banana Cream is a light, not bright yellow, but it's a light yellow. Okay? So now we're going here. We pushed down. Okay, so here's the front rib. We push these ribs under here, and we push these ribs under here. Same thing we did here. Now what we need to do is we need to, this side is down, this side is up. This side is up, and this side is up, because this is the front. So now where our paint went towards the center rib, now it's going to go away from the center rib. So in the Tangerine, we're going to float. And we're going to start here. I'm not going to start in the center, because when I'm here, if I go here, if my brush were wide enough, I would pull it right off. So I'm going to go right here. Now, can you see? I'll answer for you. Yes, Linda, I can see. I just pulled this rib on top of this rib. You know, I could teach you and have a whole conversation by myself. And then I'm going to pull this rib on top of this rib. So some people call this a back-to-back float, some call it a flip-flop float. A flip-flop float generally is a float against a float, usually the same color. But it's a float against a float. So technically, that's exactly what you have. You have a flip-flop or a black back-to-back float. All right, but we have light and dark. Then I'm going to... Hi, Bobby. I haven't seen you in so long. We're going to flip this way. And if you see when I float, all my bristles are on all the surface all the time. That one's pretty bright, huh? And we'll come here and we'll stop here. Now, this is a good thing to pay attention to why I do what I do. When I float here, I'm starting here and I'm stopping here. I'm not going down here because I don't want to pull this pumpkin up. This pumpkin is on top of this pumpkin, so there would not be light here. There will be dark. I wanted to get the light in first. But there will be dark here so that this pumpkin goes down and this one comes up. So you see all the dark in there? And that is after we do this. But light makes it come up, dark makes it go down. So that's why we use the colors that we do. And if you pay attention, and I say it over and over for this reason, if you understand why you're using the colors that you're using, it will help you to understand where to use the colors. Whether you're painting on your own, whether you're painting in another class, whether you're Zooming. There's so many Zoom classes now. So if you understand why you are doing something, it will help you understand where you are doing it. Dark makes the item recede, light brings it towards us. So now we're going to highlight this pumpkin on the outside edges of the ribs in Banana Cream. Again, the paint is not going towards the middle, it's going away. So remember I said I wanted this light. I'm going to pretend I didn't float there. I'm going to take that right out. You see that? It's a little bit messy, but... And I went a little bit heavier than you would because I wanted to get rid of the dark that's there. And then I'll come here. You see how I'm just adding that extra layer of dimension to my pumpkin? And no matter what you're painting, dark makes the item recede, light brings it towards us. So there's no big mystery or trick to that rule. Okay, so here. And then I'm going to flip my piece. And what that's going to do, again, it's going to keep my paint on the side of the brush that's away from the center rib. The center rib is the top rib. I always work from the back out so that I can touch up. If I did the stems first, then I would have to worry about being careful and neat. I am not careful and neat. I have never been careful and neat. Okay. And then I'll come in and I'll get that last ribbon. And do you see how I just took my very flat pumpkins and made them dimensional? Now, if you don't have a graduation of color on your float, you are doing one of two things wrong. You are not blending on your scrap paper, or you're lifting your brush on the corner, which a lot of people do, especially like if you were here in small areas. But that's why we start away. Always, all the bristles on all the surface all the time. Okay? You don't want to lift your brush like this because you won't have a graduation of color. You'll have a line of color. And if you're going to have a line of color, you might as well just take a brush, paint it on. These are all so good. Nobody's had any questions. You can question me. I promise you, I should know the answer. If I don't, I'll tell you I don't, but most times I do. Okay, so remember I told you, and when your paper towel gets all yucky, just get a new one, that now I need to separate these pumpkins. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the Oxblood. I know paint is very hard to find. The paint companies, I promise you, are working their little patooties off. Demand is up, and they are still on major restrictions that they can only have 40% of their normal workforce. So they are working very hard to get us paints. If you don't have the paint that is on my lists, always substitute, private message me, message the library and ask them to get in touch with me. They are fabulous about answering and calling me and asking me to get in touch with you. I am happy to give you substitutions. Okay? So don't think because you don't have what I have or what I use that you can't do this. Because you can. Now, when I floated just now, I floated on the bottom element in the shape of the top. So I went up against the top pumpkin to pull the pumpkin up and push the other pumpkin down. Okay? And you see how I just separated those two? I tend to round out the bottom with a float of dark. So I'll just come in and I'll float on the bottom. Okay? And if you're painting along with me, I try very hard to go at a pace that you can paint along. If you're painting along with me and you paint your piece, I know people post it on my Facebook all the time, and thank you. I love to see them. You can post it on the library page and tell them how wonderful I am. I'm only kidding, they already know that. But, we love to share our love of painting. The library has been wonderful about sharing so many programs and so many talents. And it's nice for them to say, you know, look, I did this. So I tell everybody to share it. And just an FYI, let me start this. I'm going to touch up the stems. So if you're painting along, just put another coat of burnt on your stems. My classes, we have been doing this online since the pandemic started. And we're not allowed to teach in person. We're not allowed to have in-person classes. So what we've been doing is we've been online. If you go to the library's Facebook page and you look under the recent ones, are go to the live tab and scroll down and they're there, or go to the older ones are on the event tab and you can scroll down. There used to be a whole section, painting with Linda. So, and just look, I put the line drawing on my personal Facebook page for 10 days before class, and then it comes down. Then it becomes a paid pattern packet, but in the meantime, I'm happy to share. Okay. Alright. So just come in, and you see how thin my coats are? I don't have big blobs of paint. You don't want big blobs of paint because then you get dried blobs of paint that don't go away. Jane, you're right. Oxblood, thank you. Norma, okay. So here's the answer to your mop question. When you mop a color, the color gets in your mop. So I constantly wipe. In the meantime, you may use a color red or something that just doesn't wipe out so quickly. So take a baby wipe. Wipe it on a baby wipe. That will take the color out, especially like if you're going from blue to yellow or any of those colors. Take a baby wipe, wipe it out on a baby wipe, and then wipe it on a paper towel to dry. Because the baby wipe has alcohol in it, you're not wetting the mop, and it'll still stay dry and you can still use it. And if I had a baby wipe here, I would show you, but I don't. Oh, you know what? I do. And luckily, I live in a studio that you can only see my table. Only a part of my table anyway. So I take a baby wipe and I adjust this. And I don't have a lot of paint in mine, but you see the orange coming out? It's a little wet. And then I'll just take my paper towel and all this, and that'll dry it, and then I can use it on anything. Then it's dry. Okay? And sometimes when I'm in the middle of a big piece, or I carry baby wipes with me, and I could constantly, and then you can just move on to the next color, and it won't pull your color. A lot of people have a problem with that. Hopefully that helped. Okay. Let's let those dry. In the meantime, I'm going to use a rigger. You can use a liner. You can use a rigger. I will tell you why I use a rigger. If I could find a piece of paper to show you. A rigger works the same as a round. It works the same as a flat. So in this case, well, let me show you both ways. Put paint and kind of rub, and you have a flat brush. you can use it in the same stroke, flat and round. And that's just a pressure thing. Okay? It's a fabulous brush. And it's an inexpensive brush. In this case, I'm not going to flatten it. But I can come in and my branches can be thicker with pressure. And then I can release pressure and be thinner. And then I can be thicker, because branches are always thicker at the base than they are at the ends of the branches. So you can see how I'm thicker at the branch, and then I get thinner. I'm thicker where it starts, and then I get thinner. I believe on the line drawing there was some branches, but I just come in and I just kind of start my branch, and I'm thicker, and then I'm going to come up. Whoop. When you load, go from the water to your paint so that you have an inky brush, an inky paint. Now you can put as many or as few branches as you want. And you see how as I get up, I get thinner. My branches never match from piece to piece. Okay. What do you use if you don't have a mop? All right, I'm going to tell you, Emily. You ready? Use your finger. Just take your finger and go like this. Your finger is a wonderful tool. Seriously, if you don't have a mop, use your finger. All right, so now I'm just going to pull a branch over in here. Now remember, watch the direction of your branch. Your branch would not hook back. Your branch is going to grow away from your piece. Keep this area open here if you're going to put a word on there. We'll see how timing goes. I'm going to do bittersweet with you. I don't know that we're going to do all the bittersweet because I put a lot of bittersweet on here. And I want to make sure I show you the words and stuff. But we'll get as many bittersweet as we can done. Now, I put these in, and then after I've painted them, then I may say, and this is exactly what happened when I designed this piece. It's so plain. So then I just went in and I added more. Again, it falls back into the category, you're not married to it. So if you're going to end up with more branches, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with wanting more. You know, I had less branches, and I certainly had less bittersweet. And I left it, and I said, okay, this will be fine. This is okay. And then I looked and I said, just a few more. And I said, oh, it's okay. And I just kept adding until I was like, okay. Because, and part of it is I know our time restraints. But if I don't get all the bittersweet done, you all know how to do bittersweet. But anybody who's painted with me knows I am quite anal about getting done. So, these branches end up to look like this. So you can see how full that is and how empty that looks. But that is just adding the bittersweet. Okay, those branches were stroked burnt umber. I think I said that. Okay. Let's base coat some bittersweet, and then we can go and do the stem. We're going to use spiced pumpkin. Now again, you can use a small flat, you can cheat and use the back of a paintbrush. If you're going to use the back of a paintbrush, you'll come in and you'll just do that. Okay? You can flatten your rigger. Half a circle and a half a circle. Okay. You can use a small flat and do half a circle and a half a circle. I will probably do the back of my brush, and generally I never do that, but I want to get these in quicker than not so that we have some time. And if you look, I just have them all over. I don't have one here, and I don't have 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. This one might be here. The bittersweet is spiced pumpkin. Yeah, this one will probably end up coming off of here. Be sure that you're not just dip dotting, because what happens is if you do this, you get a big heavy blob of paint in the middle. So kind of scribble it in and you'll lose that. And I'm just going to do the bittersweet over here. And if we have time, I'll go and I'll do the others. Because I think that if I do these, I'm not going to be able to do the words if everything is not dry. And you'll see, I do a lot of bittersweet. Bittersweet, when it grows on a branch, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. And it just takes up the whole branch. And it doesn't have to do the whole branch, so I did some here and then I skipped. That's okay. And here. And again, just like I said, I have a lot of bittersweet. You don't have to have a lot of bittersweet. When I started my piece, and you cannot believe me, you can do as much bittersweet as you want. When I started this piece, I didn't have a lot of bittersweet. And then I kept looking at it and it's plain, it's plain. So I just kept adding bittersweet till I was happy. So if you feel I have too much bittersweet, do the same thing. Just have a couple and then go back, and if you want more, add more. It is much easier to add more than to take them away. Okay? So I probably will leave it there, but I'm kind of thinking I might end up with something in here, but I might not. I don't want to be totally orange in there. Okay? And like I said, I'm not going to do these because I want to make sure that I can demo the word for you. And if they're wet, I'm going to have a problem. And if I knew where my fan was, it'd be okay. Alright, well, we're going to hope these dry. Okay, so let's do the stem. So we're going to take some soft black, and soft black, by the way, is a very, very dark brown. So if you don't have soft black, take black, lamp black, and add some traditional burnt umber to it. You don't want to be lamp black. Okay. And for everybody who just came in, thank you for coming and spending your night with me. We're very blessed. We do this twice a month until we can be back in person. So until then, thank you. I thank the library. Because we have so much fun. Alright, so I'm going to take a Mezza Luna, which is a dry brush. I like the Mezza Luna because I can wash it in between colors and I can kind of do my thing with it. So on a Mezza Luna, you're going to use it dry. You're going to pick up your color and you're going to pinch. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to dry brush some soft black in. Now, I'm going to hold this here for a second until the delay is off and see if you can see that. It's not a huge value change. Can you see that? Here, let me do this. Come on. I know I'm talking to myself. I'm not really, I'm talking to you. Okay. So you see right here where I scrubbed in the dark? And you'll see it a lot when I scrub in the light. But you can see, oops, I know, just a little camera, sorry about that. And you see that? Okay, so that's, it's not a huge value change, but we need it for depth. So we need to have that in there. And I'll just bring some in. Thank you, Rochelle. Sometimes I look at my, because I have it up on another camera, and sometimes I can't see it, but I can see it in front of me. So it helps, thank you. I'm on the side of my brush, and I'm just scrubbing some in. Now this brush is made of synthetic and natural hair. So I can wash it, which you cannot normally do with dry brushes, so don't do it with your regular dry brushes. And then I'll pinch it dry. On your library, are there other videos of you giving painting lessons? Yes, Norma. If you go to the live tab, the recent ones are there, and at some point, and I don't know when, but at some point they move them over to the events tab. So go to the events tab. We have been doing this since, I guess we shut down in March, so I think we started in April. So there have been 2 a month since April. One is a beginner class and one is labeled intermediate. The difference is the beginner, I go through all the techniques. So floating I'll go through, and dry brushing I'll go through. Here I just say float and dry brush. So it's a little bit different. All right, same brush, we're going to pick up Fawn. I'm going to pick up Fawn. I'm going to pinch off the paint. Now, this is going to be a big value change. So you see here? Now remember, the texture, that's the best word I can use. The texture on the stem of the pumpkin is raised. So if you think of a pumpkin that you have in real life, this is real life, but you know what I mean, in your home, this will be raised when you touch it. So we want to create a very distinct raised area, okay? So I'm going to come in and I'm going to create a raised area. I'm not going across the whole thing, because if I go across the whole thing, I lose the texture area. That's the best way I can describe it. I don't know if that's the right way to describe it. And then I'll come here and I'll leave the dark in between. Now this isn't always the case, but in this case, we're trying to get the illusion of the texture. Okay, so we'll do the same thing here. We'll come here, and then we'll come here. And it makes you look at it and say, oh, we have those textured areas of a pumpkin that when you pick up, you know are there. Okay, and this is just scrubbing with my Mezza Luna. That's all it is. Okay, so I'm here and I'm pinching it off. And I'll brighten a little bit here and there. The one thing about dry brushing is not only you don't have to, but you can't get the color you want, the brightness you want in one application. When you try to get the color as bright as you want it in one application, what happens is you get, I'll show you exactly what you get. So where, you can't see it. Give me a second. Oh, here. It is demoing clouds. Ignore my clouds. So where I pinch and I work my color up like this. And see, I'm slowly working it up. If I try to get the brightest color immediately, this is what I get. I don't get a dry brush, I get an application of paint. Okay? I don't want, and it's very distracting, I'm sorry. I don't want an application of paint. What I want is a slow buildup from light, well, the darkest to medium to the lightest. And that's just a slow buildup. It's a big difference between here and here. Okay? And that's really important. So when I'm here, I'm slowly building it up. Now, might it take me 2 applications? Sure. Might it take me 4? Yeah. But you just take your time and you kind of do it. And then you can rinse out your brush. Our pumpkins are really coming to life, aren't they? We are not dry. Okay, so let's do this. That's the only problem with doing berries with the back of your brush. Very heavy. So we'll come in and we'll do this. And I don't know where my fan is. So if you have a fan or a blow dryer, you can use it because nobody else can hear you. So it's okay. Okay. Hi, Shirley. Norma. Number 1, you're not bothering me. Ask as many questions as you want. I'm very happy to answer them. Number 2, I use Dynasty brushes, so I always use Dynasty. Number 3, my dry brush. This one is called a Mezza Luna. I use it for a lot of things and in a lot of different ways, but Mezza Luna I use for a lot of things. And thank you. I love my nails too. They are my own, FYI. Okay, so I don't have any of these that are dry. All right, so we're going to take Heritage Brick. You know what? Let's give them a second to dry. Because all we have left is Bittersweet and our lettering. So let's do some lettering. If you do your lettering, you must be careful to not put your hand in it. Because you don't want to get it everywhere. So I have a piece of wax paper, because we gotta have some bling with that. Now, there's a couple of things. I pulled a couple of stencils, so I'm gonna see what I'm gonna do. If you don't have modeling paste and you don't have glitter, that's okay. If you don't have a stencil, you can letter with your rigger. You're not bound to do anything the way I do it. You can write whatever you want. I think I'm going to do grateful. Okay. Yeah, blessed is too big and thankful is too big. So I'm going to do grateful. And I specifically chose to do different things so that you can see everything can be changed. Now, I'm going to show you how to do raised texture and raised stencils. I do this a lot. I do it all the time with snowflakes. I do it a lot of the time with all different things. It's one of my things. So I use modeling paste. Oh, I love the folds in the large ones. Thanks, Deb. All right, so my modeling paste, a palette knife. I use the back of my palette knife. So this is my modeling paste, which I have. It looks like there's nothing in here. There's so much still in there, but that's how much I use it. But there's a lot left in here. Okay, I'm using the back of my palette knife. It's thick, so you see it doesn't come off. I'm going to take my stencil and I'm going to rub it across. Oops. And anything that you don't use as I take it off can go right back in the jar. Try to be pretty uniform. So you can put on a big lump and then just smooth it out. And I'm just trying to avoid down here. You could take this off. You could take a piece of paper and put it there. I am in my lazy mode, which is often. And then I'm here. And then I'll take what's left of my palette knife and I'll just put it back. I'll hold and I'll lift. Beautiful, right? Just let me put this aside for a second so I can show you something. I'll come in and I'll take a piece of scrap paper or wax paper and I'll pull off what's left. Now see how much I took off? I'm going to put it right back in the jar. Then I'm going to take my baby wipe. Now this is something, before I said you could wait. You don't want to wait for this because you don't want it to be stuck on here. So I'm just here. And you'll see. Oh, you can't see. Sometimes you can see. I'm just going to come in. I'm just going to wipe it off. Now that stays wet for a little bit, so I'm okay with time. Now my stencil is nice and clean. Put that aside. And I like the word grateful. This stencil is covered also. That's covered also. So then I have ultrafine glitter. This is, I bought at Michael's. It comes in a big, I don't know, there's like, they have sets. There's 12 different colors, or then they have some with 25 different colors. I'm using the big end, and I just Blob it on. I know you're all looking and saying, oh my God, what is she doing? She's a crazy person. And then I kind of this. Look at how pretty that is. And then what'll happen is, when it's dry, I'll just take a mop and I'll just brush so all the extra will come off. Do you see that? Let me make sure it's the right way, which it should be. We had a problem months ago. Everything was mirror image. It took me a while to figure it out. Isn't that pretty? So then I'll open. I'll just fold my wax paper in half. And I'll pour it all right back in. And I used, when I tell you I've used it, put this back on, I used very little. Okay. And I have a beautiful, well, they're just about dry. And then I'll just brush that off. This one said Happy Autumn. Now this is already brushed off. And when it's dry, look, my glitter's not coming off. My glitter's there. Okay? Let's see if you can see this. I don't know if you can see. It's raised. It's probably 1/8 of an inch. Depending on how heavy you make it, is how long it will take to dry. Okay? You can make it as thick as you want. Snowflakes, and then use ice crystal glitter over it. Gorgeous. Gorgeous. Okay, let's get some bittersweet. Now, if you were doing this whole piece, what would happen is you would paint all the bittersweet, and then by the time you were done, it would be dry. So you wouldn't have to jump the way I have. So I'm going to take some Heritage Brick. Just a little bit. If you don't have Heritage Brick, anything, one second and I'll show you. In that family. There. So it's pretty close to Oxblood. There's my Oxblood, which I had a big lump. So there's my Oxblood. My Oxblood has got more orange in it. This has got more red in it. Alright, so we're going to float. Now, you're going to float the bottom of each bittersweet. The bottom is the edge that's closest to the branch. That's real important. People tend to float the bottom just down here. That wouldn't be. This is closest to the branch. So this would be this bottom. Okay, float, huh? This is the bottom. But over here, this is closest to the branch. That's the bottom. Now, I know people tend to want to do this, but all the bristles on all the surface all the time, or you won't get a graduation of color. And you need a graduation of color. Now, sometimes my color bleeds over, so I take the clean end of my brush. That's what I'm doing. And I'm just pulling it off. Okay. And when we're done, I will show you next month's. I'll show you the beginner piece, and I'll show you, and I know everybody's itching to see it because I've had people ask me. So I'll show you. My surfaces were from the Dollar Tree, so go get them while you can. You all know the Dollar Tree has it when they have it. Okay, so I'm here. And you see what I'm doing? Okay. Those I don't like, I'm going to repaint. Now, I don't know if you can see, I put my hand in it, so I have dots in it all. And I'll just go in and I'll fix them after. Okay, beautiful bittersweet, right? Bittersweet is so pretty. I'm going to come in with Cad Yellow. And now I'm going to float the tops of each bittersweet. So the bottom is the part that's closest to the branch. The top is the edge that's away from the branch. Now, Emily, you see that? So I just take my finger and mop it. So if you don't have a mop handy, that's what you do. I often use my finger. Don't tell the brush company. But I do. Sometimes in little areas, a mop, so if I did this and I went like this with a big mop, often it goes everywhere. And it defeats the whole purpose of using a mop. So you don't want to do that. So you just quick blot with your finger. Okay. And we'll do just these couple more. You timed pretty good, huh? And so far, I think I haven't missed anybody's comment, but if I have, I'm sorry. Okay, so there's your bittersweet. Now, okay, Jane, so I put my finger down and I have that little hole there. I don't know if you can see it. So here's my whole bittersweet, and here I have a hole. Let's see. Nope, that doesn't help you, right? Because I'm off camera. 1 second. There you go. Okay, that's better. So now you can see. See those holes? Oh, you can see them really good. That's because I put my hand there. So what I'll do is I'll just go back in and base coat over them, and that'll fix it. So that's all. So these I must have done this or something, and that'll take care of that. So it's just a matter of rebase coating. And I'll take that right out. All right, now bittersweet not only has to connect, so we need our liner. I have a lost liner somewhere. Oh. Okay, and soft black. So the first thing we're going to do is, when you use a liner, go from the water straight to your paint to an inky consistency. Use them straight up and down. You have to connect, I'm trying to find a good one. Here's a good one. You have to connect your bittersweet to the branch. Right? And then it has a little stem-like on top. See that? So every bittersweet, this is on the end of the branch, so I don't have to connect that, but it would still have a little stem on the top. So here. Now if your paint is doing what mine is and it's not flowing, that's because you don't have enough water in your brush. So there, I just put more water in my brush and you see it flows. And a stem. Now think this connects. Don't put your stem here and then your top here. They go in the same line. So here and here. This one you can't really see the stem, but you can see the top. This one, you can't see the stem because it's at the end of the branch. So I'm right there. And this one is here and here. So I have taken these random berries. Well, they're not berries, they're bittersweet. So I'm not sure if they're bittersweet berries or not. I'll have to look that up. I've taken what we've painted. If you have a lump, Jane, you can sand it down. Don't use sandpaper, use an emery board. But there's so little here. Like, it looks worse on the camera than it does in, like, here. I can't feel a lump here. I know it looks really bad on there. But when I'm doing this, I can't feel, it feels the same as here. But if you have a lump, take an emery board, and an emery board will kind of just sand it down without taking anything else off. So you see how I've connected them, and I've given them their stems to make them bittersweet. And I would do all of this. Okay? So we have done all of this. I just have not done the bittersweet here. I changed my stencil here, and I've changed my word. Is one right and one wrong? Absolutely not. They're just different. You have to think outside the box. You have to think, oh, I want to do something I love. You have to say, and you can do this with anything. You can do, I'm on a jingle bell kick, so you could do jingle bells and do jingle. You can, there's so much you can do. All right, that's a lot of fun. All right, next month, are you ready? Okay, I'm going to show you the beginner piece first, because I can. Don't ask me for the dates, please, because I didn't pull my calendar. So, this is our beginner piece. Isn't that beautiful? So much fun. This is the surface at Dollar Tree. Okay? There will be base coating or we won't get it done. This is our piece. Our intermediate piece, which is this class, is this piece. It's an ornament, so it's hanging on the ornament wall at Dollar Tree. This will be this. How cute is he? I love him. Now, you have two options, three options really. You can, he comes with these holes. They are fine. This, I did not fill in the holes. And this, I just put glitter on this rim. Okay? This one, I took wood filler. I didn't do it in the hat. I left the hat alone. And I put wood filler in all the ridges. I just did. And I left the mustache as is. And I did that. And then I base coated it. And then I bought boa. You know, like at Michael's, like you put around your neck. And I put a piece of boa there. So you have a couple of options. This is the piece at Dollar Store, at Dollar Tree. Hanging on the wall in the ornament section. You can make him look like this. You can make him look like this. He can have the ridges. He can not. He can have glitter. He can have boa. There's so many. And I didn't touch this. This comes just like this. Okay, so he's a fun piece. Okay. You will need a rake. I will show you partial, January. The beginner piece is this piece from Dollar Tree. I'm telling you now because they have them while they have them and then they don't have them. So this will be the beginner piece in January. It's a thinner piece, but it really looks cute when it's done. So if you're going to do January online with me, this is the piece. What? Wait a minute. What did the boards look like from the Dollar Tree? Norma, what boards are you talking about? The Merry boards? It's got to be the only thing. Is this? Oh, thank you, Linda. I'm very lucky to do what I do. I'm very lucky. God gave me my talent to share. Oh, Betty, I'm so glad. I hope you painted it. So this is the piece. This piece that we painted tonight, I was at Hobby Lobby, and it's a cradle panel, which is an 8x8, the pumpkin boards. Okay, so here's your answer. They were at Hobby Lobby. They're 8x8 cradle panels, which are wood canvases. It had something written on it. It was, I don't know, Wild About You or something. I don't know. And then it had this on the edges. And it was 90% off, so it was $1.39. This, you have to think outside the box. So whatever you see, even if it's painted on, think you can paint right over it. And that's anything. I paint on soup cans. I paint on everything. So this was Hobby Lobby. Next month's pieces are both from Dollar Tree. January beginner is Dollar Tree. And the only thing I will tell you about the intermediate for January is it is on fabric. I used a 20 by 20 pillow cover. But that's all I will tell you. December, after the intermediate class, I will show you. Okay? Oh, you're very welcome, Norma. And that's where we end. And yes, Amanda, the Santas are adorable. I absolutely love them. So I thank you all for coming. I tell you all a very happy Thanksgiving. I'll show you my face. Not that you want to see. I talk much better when you don't have to look at me, don't I? Ha! There I am. All right, so I tell you happy Thanksgiving. I will see you all in December. And in the meantime, if you need me, message me or just hop onto the library, and they are so willing to help you or to get in contact with me, to get in contact with you. So if you have any questions, just let me know. Enjoy your night, and thank you for spending your night with me. Good night.